We just got back from EJS 2022 and it was a blast. All of our rigs were very, very good. We had a few things kind of go wrong with each and every one of them. So just like you should do after any run, you should put your rig back in the shop and give it a thorough inspection so that you know that you're ready for the next trails.
So we're going to do an initial walk around. I've already looked over. Most of my stuff is cosmetic at this point. And so let's take a look at what happened. First and most obvious right here, taking obstacles that are slightly taller than my Jeep. I've got a few scrapes and scratches, just some cosmetic damage, and I brought home some dirt. My differential skid. A few scratches back here on the plastic fenders. I knew I was going to probably be upgrading to steel fenders at some point, so I'm not too heartbroken. And of course, I had to get the at the t-shirt shop in Moab, they sell stickers for all the trails you do, so I like to document that. One thing I noticed back here also is, and this is a problem with the Rubicon steel bumper, is that when you land on it like I did, it pushes it up and scratches the body right in there, and so that's actual scratch into paint, and so we'll have to get that cleaned up. And then underneath, and we'll get a good picture of this on the lift, I gave my skid plates a real good workout.
So you would think that a rig built this big wouldn't get any damage, but hello, I'm the driver. I hit some ledges that I tried to take on Gold Bar Rim and a couple other trails, and I kept hitting my recovery points. You can see it there too. That's the size of the ledges I was approaching. Part of that is noviceness. I should have taken them at more of an angle, but I don't like this bumper. I'm shopping for a new one, one that sucks back just a little bit better and has a little bit better clearance. Let's go this way. This scratch, and you can't quite see them, but I've got a scratch here and a couple of scratches that way, are all from when I landed it in a tree on Poison Spider trying to do one very steep uphill climb. She rolled backwards on me and I wound up in the tree. So thankfully I had planned to repaint this rig anyway, primarily because I'm not happy with this. This is one primer, this is a different primer, but it's actually the exact same color. So conveniently I got to talk to Robbie Layton a little bit about it, and he agreed with my plan. So that plan will be taking place this summer. Not a whole lot of other. I was really surprised that I got hooked on my bumper. This mega tall bumper on top of the world. I came off of a ledge that big. I landed it on the bumper and I wound up having to wiggle myself off of it. So we've got that. I don't think that's anything we can fix, but boy, I was surprised to do that. Now, as far as the fixes go, the rear tire there is the big one. 3 guesses what's going on there. Axle seal leak. We just noticed us putting it on the trailer at the very end. So this is going to be an easy thing, and it's actually convenient because I'm still running brake-in fluid in the diffs. That needs to be taken out. So might as well help it with the axle. Maybe we can just tip her on her side and drain her that way. Maybe not. The other thing is we've got some more Loctiting to do.
Starting there.
Yeah, starting here. I did break it on Golden Spike. I came around a very tight right-hand turn, and my ram in the front for power steering hydro assist came unthreaded, and that's because the jam nut wasn't properly Loctited. Oh, bad one on all of us. But we will get that taken care of too. So Loctite is going to be in this rig's future, as well as is typical of new builds, we should go through and just check the torque on everything after a week in EJS as well. think that's the big things for her. We got one, sorry. We've got one leaky AN fitting still on the steering box after installing the Vanco Hydro Boost. Kenneth has a plan for that, so that's on the fix-it list as well.
So, honestly, the Blue JL here did really well at Safari. We ran easy trails, hard trails, this, that, the others. We did come away with a little bit of issues. At some point, I hit a rock pretty hard in the front end, and steering racked over really hard to the driver's side. And after that, my alignment's off. The steering's no longer centered. Front bumper seems to have come out of it all pretty good. We've got, here and there, we've got the bumps and bruises on the trim rings on the tires. That's plastic, and I have the beadlock rings for it, and I think the answer is mount up the beadlock rings and the damaged pieces there go away. It's easier to see some of the rest of this when it's clean. Unfortunately, it's dirty again, but we had some scraping the full length of the slider here. Stayed mostly on the slider, but at the same time we've got, we did rubber rock up here on the body, and on Hey Joe Canyon got into a tree apparently, and a little bit of a ding there. Not too bad, but a little bit there. The same way, kind of like Roy, I've got the scuffs in the plastic fenders. I got most of that from Hey Joe Canyon. Not necessarily a hard trail, but one that the brush is really close, and so you get a lot of contact between the brush and the side of the vehicle. And then the last one, again similar to Roy, on Cane Creek I came down, landed on the rear bumper hard here, and you can actually maybe not see it, but you can definitely feel where the bumper itself is deformed where it landed, but it pushed the bumper up hard enough that it actually pushed it up into the body and messed up the paint, and did in fact dent the sheet metal a little bit. That's something I want to take a look at when we get it up on the lift and see how the bumper is actually attached to the frame, and if there's anything we can do to reinforce. The rest of it is going to be get underneath it and see how it fared. What we're looking at.
So, yeah, just now that we've got it up on the lift, we can get underneath and see a little better. Yeah, I did some serious scratching here. I even hit my winch thing there. A couple of scrapes there. I hit the steering stabilizer. I am planning on doing an upgrade and getting a relocation kit on that at some point. My differential skid rode up on stuff. It did its job doing things. Hit the lower control arm mounts, drug along the lower control arm. Yeah, basically anything low hanging, except my axle disconnect. I bought the nice Artec skid and didn't hit it, but I'm sure I will eventually. But yeah, I hit this.
They did manage to hit the bracket.
Right. And then you can get a long shot. My metal cloak skids did exactly what they are supposed to do, which is protect everything underneath. Gas tank, the whole DPF exhaust system, transmission, everything is well protected. Yeah, and then we can move around to the back. Okay, so continuing on to the back, basically anything low hanging, shock mount, control arm mount, differential skid, all of them took hits at one point or another. This is the whole diesel exhaust fluid tank, and the skid has a few dings on it. You come back a little further. Got my hitch, got my tow hook, got my bumper, Yeah, there were a couple of drop-offs on the hills on some ledges that came down a little too fast. I dropped off a little too fast and bang. But that's what all this armor is for. And my plan, so I when I ordered this Jeep, I deliberately bought the steel bumpers. I paid a little extra, and it's mostly because I wanted the front bumper that has the recessed hitch mount, or the winch mount. I knew that this rear bumper flexes into the body, and I'm probably going to look at getting an aftermarket replacement that's heavier steel, mounts a little more securely, protects a little better. But that's a future video. And doing a little bit more walk around, you can see right up in through here, rock sliders did their job. These are the chintzy factory ones. They held up okay. They probably wouldn't take real abuse, so I'll probably upgrade these at some point, but this seemed to be adequate for this trip.
Okay, so looking at this JK, what did it do?
Wait, stop.
It's a JL.
Fine. Looking at this Wrangler and what it did at Safari. Now this one, we went down Cane Creek. That was really the only really hard trail. And then we had, lower rated 4s, 5s that we did on other things. But same kind of idea, walking through it nose to tail. We don't see, doesn't look like I got into as much with the front. I'll probably wash it and likely see some of it, but doesn't look like I got into anything there. At first glance, it looks like most of the steering and front end came out unscathed, but as you get closer and start to look at the underside, we can see that the tie rod here took a pretty good scrape across the whole bottom. We have some rust showing across the bottom of the differential cover. Now this is scuffs, again where the paint got scuffed off. This cover has a skid that goes with it, but it doesn't fit the 21 front differential. There were some changes made to the casting, and Motobilt has not, or Metal Cloak has not addressed those changes yet. And low-hanging fruit, we see the scuffs on the bottom of the control arms and control arm bracketry. And then as we start to come back, and we do see a little bit here on the bottom of the CAD bracket. Got a hit here on the back of the
Skid plate.
Engine skid plate. I'm kind of looking through the rest of this. Coming back, we do have a hit here right on the corner. That's sort of interesting how that works. And then you can start to see some of these up here in the bolts where things have been caught. We've got a couple of really long skids down the body there and over here and right down the ridge here, where it looks like I ended up on my belly and then slid over it, coming back and coming down. What's really interesting is you start to follow these back, and we see, back here, underneath the fuel tank, and then we start to see the hit that the drive shaft took, and here on the flange on the CV, coming down off the side, all the way down the skid plate on the back of the axle, and with corresponding witness marks here. So it looks like at some point I slid, probably 3/4 of my length over this bottom thing, and all of this stuff doing what it was supposed to do. Interesting, to have all of this witness marks and nothing coming down either of the control arms. But we do have, again, the low-hanging items here on these, as well as potentially, it looks like, scuff mark here at the bottom of the spring or the track bar bracket. On the DEF tank skid, we do see a scuff mark here, We've got a rock wedged into the drain hole there.
Wow.
So again, the skid plating doing its job, you know, protecting the vehicle. Coming back up, you know, these tow hooks are just among the best skid plating in the back of the vehicle. So once again, I've got the hit there, and I don't have any of the rest of this that has been mangled. You can see the hit here that the bumper took coming off on Cane Creek. And then if you start looking at the bracketry up in here where the bumper attaches, you can actually see that this bracket is bent upward. So if you look at the partner bracket on this side of the thing, you can actually see that this one is bent down relative to the one on the other side. So quite definitely when the Jeep landed on that rear bumper, we saw that it twisted the bracketry and twisted the bumper coming up. So all in all,
well, and I also noticed just a little scratch.
Yeah, we got a little bit of scuffing here on the back side of this. But all in all, nothing catastrophic, nothing that represents a huge failure point, and a lot of skid plating doing what skid plates are there to do. This was really the big trip for the TJ. First time it had been on the trail, and this one's much more of a sort of custom fabricated build, just a lot more stuff. On the whole, it actually worked pretty good for us. We did have some interesting things. I think the moral of the story here was Loctite, and if you think you don't need Loctite,
use more Loctite.
Use more Loctite. 'Cause we had fun things happen, like the hydraulic ram here actually managed to unscrew itself out of the fitting.
Yeah, so the shaft here backed itself out.
And so, and you can actually kind of see it because it's starting to do it again, because this was pretty much all the way in before. So this is going to need to come apart and be put together with Loctite, just to make sure it doesn't move.
Yeah, these stayed together fine.
Problem is when it came apart, that is where that bugger came in, is because it swung over and it buggered the threads a little bit. But thankfully we were able on trail side to use the jam nut there to clean up the threads and put it all back together. It's only down for about 10 minutes.
Yep. The witness marks from the alignment shop here were really helpful to us when these managed to back themselves off, and then again other things start moving around. That helped us out. You know, the witness marks on the track bar, as well as on the steering drag link. So that all kind of helped us out. Otherwise, the front end of this one, as far as contact, this actually looks pretty good. We are going to come back here with the Hydro Assist steering, and we're going to replace these two 90-degree fittings with fittings that will bring the, instead of bringing it back, we'll bring the lines directly across, which will put them in front of the steering linkage out here instead of coming from behind.
And while the camera's here, it's this 90-degree fitting. That's the pressure line for the from the pump. Actually, it's coming from the brake booster. But all of this dirt is stuck on here because it was just a light film of power steering fluid all over everything, and it mixes with dirt and makes a nice chocolate pudding mess that we're gonna have to clean off.
We've got a couple of witness marks on the skid plates, so even as tall as this thing sits, we did see some activity that actually made contact with the belly skid.
Well, because as tall as you make it, that just means you can tackle bigger obstacles.
Bigger rocks. Yep, that's the way this works.
Nobody told me I couldn't do big rocks.
Yep.
And you did.
I did big rocks.
And you did big rocks. So here on the side of the control arm, we've got a witness mark here, and then on the frame, coming up on the inside we have a corresponding witness mark here. So we will spend a little bit more time trying to clearance down the lip here on the edge of the frame. Try to make just a little bit more room for the control arm going forward. Again, kind of looking through, drive shaft seems to have come out pretty good. We do have some witness marks down here on the bottom of the differential. It's a Dana 60, it's a good sized diff, but some marks there. We've got some marks here on the bottom of the control arm, and then we've got the same witness mark on the frame and corresponding mark on the control arm from the movement there. So we do have a little bit in various places.
We also have a wiggle.
I heard that.
And that's the turn down at the very end, hitting our reinforcing brace. We can fix that. So this was on me, and you can see this bolt had backed out, and several of them were only finger tight. You can see these were torqued to spec, but I forgot to put Loctite on. My bad.
And so again, lack of Loctite results in things backing out.
So Loctite, Loctite, Loctite.
Loctite and more Loctite.
And we didn't notice this until we were loading her on the trailer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The good news is I'm at 485 miles on this break-in oil. So we got to redo the diffs anyway.
Yeah. And one other thing we noticed, I think it was before the first day, the first trail, was that the lock ring bolts, some of them, we actually had lost one completely. It had come all the way out. Most of them were loose, and so we went through and torqued every single bead lock bolt on all 4 tires. We didn't do the spare, but we will. And so I'm thinking we're going to have to come back in, and that's a regular service thing. We're going to do that a couple of times a year.
I think April's going to have to do the spare.
Yep.
Haha.
Yep. And that is just that's a thing, as the rubber compresses, that will need to be compressed down. You don't want to get into Loctite on these, because again, the rubber's going to move, and so you want to be coming back and compressing that stuff down over time. NICs is actually highly recommended on those, because you've got steel bolts going into an aluminum rim, and you can end up with the dissimilar metal corrosion. So again, I think on the whole, we've got a little bit of work to do, but this one has come through pretty good.
One of the big things on this one is not related to the build. It's that I am continuing to see the same behavior with the IAC after every major run.
Yeah.
It just gets dirty, and I clean the filter halfway through, but the IAC needs throttle body cleaner in order to for it to run more smoothly. And then I have to drive it so the IAC relearns.
And did we catch?
No, that's courtesy of Wheeler last year.
Okay, so that's an old scratch.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why she's getting repainted.
Yeah. Well, yeah. All right. This thing did really, really well. I'm actually kind of surprised, because we are definitely amateurs. I'm surprised it did as well as it did without something going wrong. But we over-engineered it, and April's such a good driver. Yeah, I'm really impressed with this.